One of the things that's characterized this White House has not been extended planning and looking down down the road in any long way. But I do think that there's a sense of dread in the West Wing about what potentially is coming on a number of fronts. There's the Mueller investigation and how that looks to the extent that we all can know the timeline of it. It looks like that might be wrapping up in the next few months. There's the Democrats taking over in the House, which leads to investigations, and there's just a general sense that the president has kind of reached the end of his rope, to the extent that he was self-modulating his actions, if we can call it that, over the last 2 years. People in the White House think that that's now over. So so the next few months, if you combine all of those things, they could be critical.
And then there's the economy, which is, let's be honest, what we're talking about this week, and what has gotten the president so frustrated with his Fed chair, his Treasury Secretary, and so on and so forth. He's been in a position where he's been able to pursue some of the more controversial policy measures of his administration, both because Republicans controlled both chambers of Congress and because he had the economy on his side. And when the markets decline, and if there's further economic erosion, if people keep using the R word, if things start moving into that territory, it not only changes the balance of power in Congress, which the Democrats already are taking over the House, but it changes the bedrock on which he's built all the rest of these calculations.
And it could prompt more change how people speak out against him. I want to bring in something that I spoke with Claire McCaskill, the outgoing Missouri senator, about last week. She's, Corcoran's one of the handful of Republican senators who actually speak out. She says privately they say things much different about Trump.
They're keeping their head down, and here's what they're rationalizing in their heads. Now, they'll tell you, if it's just the two of you, the guy's nuts. He doesn't have a grasp of the issues. He's making brash decisions. He's not listening to the people who know the subject matter. But in public, if they go after him, they know they get a primary. And they know that's tough. And they've watched what happened to their colleagues who did go after him. This is a completely different Republican Party. Now, I think history will judge some of my colleagues harshly that they didn't stand up to this president.
Do you think that next Congress is going to be any different in the Senate specifically? I mean, you have Flake gone, Corker gone, McCain passed away. Will there be Republicans speaking out against it?
Well, that's to be seen, especially with the incoming Utah Senator Mitt Romney. But I think what's important to remember is that the Senate's political fortunes this cycle really hinged on the president and his popularity. But look at the Senate map for the next cycle. It's people like Cory Gardner, Tom Tillis, Joni Ernst, who are up for re-election in blue, purple states. They're going to have to distance themselves from Trump, politically speaking, and that'll determine a lot of what they say and act on Capitol Hill.
A lot to follow in the months ahead. But first, up next, what was the vibe on Capitol Hill this year?
What was the mood like in there?
The mood in there is not good.
My colleagues Burgess Everett and Sungmin Kim and I spend most of our working hours on Capitol Hill chasing members of Congress through the hallways to ask them about the political news of the day, between the Russia probe, the Supreme Court nomination of Brett Kavanaugh, the midterms, and, of course, the president's Twitter account. There's been a lot to ask about in 2018.
Do you know what number CR this is? This has been going on for 6 months. They've had a 3-month CR, they've had a 1-month CR, they've had a 2-week CR.
Do you really believe that there's a secret society within the FBI plotting to take down the president? If you were him, would you continue in this job, getting humiliated day after day?
I hope he will continue in the job, because I'd hate to find a replacement for him. I think he's doing a good job, but if you want to blow up the Senate, try to find an attorney general to replace Jeff Sessions under these circumstances.
Do you think Kim is very talented, as the president said?
I have no earthly idea.
I am standing on this hill, and if they want to kick me out of the Senate, so be it. Bring it.
Are you comfortable with the president's attacks on Christine Blasey Ford?
The president's comments were just plain wrong.
Did the White House have any role in your memo, sir?
Democracy dies in darkness, my friend. Get to work.
Senator, how you doing?
About to find out how little I know again today.
Just a taste of what we all go through every day. What's been your experience like this Congress? Of course, we're in a very unusual period, having to cover the White House and talk to them about what's coming out of the White House every single day.
Well, one thing I learned is that oftentimes Republican senators have not seen the thing that President Trump just tweeted about a lot of times.
They say they haven't seen
it. Or they say they feign ignorance a lot. But look, this is where this is an administration where there has been so much of an impact on Congress beyond just the legislative impact and voting on nominations. We know that a lot of people on Capitol Hill are among the president's closest advisors. You know, Senator Lindsey Graham, he went from an enemy during the 2016 campaign to now one of his closest advisors. We know the Freedom Caucus, which perhaps didn't have as wide scale of influence as they did under the Obama administration when they were just kind of annoying House Republican leadership, does have the president's ear. And it's just to cover that nexus of this administration and Congress has been really an interesting relationship to watch, and the relationship between Democrats and the Trump administration will be one to watch as well.
It's interesting. I mean, watching how the Republicans distance themselves from what Trump is saying. Yeah. They try to say saying versus doing, but saying is doing because both the president's words actually matter. Yeah. How long do you think they can continue to separate that as we head into the new Congress in this really uncertain period for this White House?
We'll be looking a lot to Senate Republicans, like Sungmin just mentioned. They have a difficult map in a bunch of swing states, and in some of those states, I would think you're going to still have people that are close to the president, maybe until their primaries are over, and then they need to win a general election. And that suggests maybe you don't flip that switch until the middle of 2020. So I don't anticipate a huge break from the president on daily issues, no matter how upset they are about Mattis, Syria, shutdown. Right now, I think in 2 months, we're going to be on to something else.
And you get a sense, too, the members are just really, really weary about the fight and controversy. And controversy, I mean, we all covered the Kavanaugh confirmation proceedings. What stuck out to you in the most in dealing with covering that and watching that unfold in front of your eyes?
Well, I think just how contentious the nature of this fight was. And a lot of senators said afterwards just how they felt this particular nomination battle really changed the texture and the fabric of the Senate forever. And I think I maybe thought that was hyperbole at the time. But you do see how, Lindsey Graham had become such a key figure in that entire fight. And he decided to campaign on behalf he campaigned against his own sitting senators, which he says he usually hasn't done before. And so that raises the question, if we find ourselves in another confirmation fight in the next 2 years of the presidency, what's going to happen in that instance?